Hi, welcome to Battleground Believers. Thank you so much for being part of the audience. Remember, we are on all streaming sites: YouTube, Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Music. You can find us all over the place. We have a TikTok account and a Facebook account. And we also have a email address. We're battlegroundbelievers@gmail.com. Our tagline is telling his story through your story. And we do that at the Two Bar Blues Studio. I used to mess that up and put the S in the wrong spot, but now I'm getting better. I'm becoming a professional. And we thank you so much for the opportunity to be here. But today, as we tell his story through your story, we're going to do that through Aaron Replogle, a guy that comes to our men's Bible study on occasion, or when we have it, we're able to have it. A lot of weather and stuff has happened. But really excited about this interview and spend some time with Aaron today. And so telling his story through your story, and we're going to go ahead and let you kind of take control of the conversation and start wherever you want. And we want to hear about kind of how you came to know the Lord and see where the conversation goes from there. And hopefully the Holy Spirit leads and takes control a little bit. And without further ado, Aaron.
Thanks, Brad. Thanks for having me. Yeah, so in the early 1800s...
Well, you did start like that.
Yeah, so there were three brothers with the same last name, the Replogle last name. They came over from Germany. They were what was called at the time Anabaptists, German Anabaptists, and they had a hand in creating...
the Brethren Church, right?
The Church of the Brethren, yes. That sort of sprouted in the Midwest, and my dad would know way more about this, and I'm actually going to learn more about it with him soon, but basically like Indiana, maybe a little Ohio, Illinois, Missouri, there's Replogles spread out, and so if you meet a Replogle, I'm likely related to them. And as it turned out, my father pastored in the Church of the Brethren for roughly 42 years. He is retired now. But I was born in 1983, and he started pastoring the Pleasantdale Church of the Brethren at the time. I believe it was July 1st of 83, and I was born on August 3rd that same year. And yeah, we just grew up. We lived in the parsonage, wonderful parish hall across the street, a lot of good memories. We played in the woods. We had stories. My brother and I would be like in the mud pits, and my dad had to hose us off outside, that kind of just...
Did you swim in the baptismal?
No, it was kind of small. So I didn't get into there until I was about 12 years old, right around the time we left the church. But I do remember my best friend and I got baptized by my father on the same day in the basement of that church. And I've actually visited not too long ago. Everything's different, but that little baptismal still at least kind of exists in that building.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, so we had my brother and my best friend and I had a little group. We'd ride our bikes around the countryside, and we called it God's Group. We would play in the church together and just generally have a good time. And so my
At
father...
that age, were you a believer? Or were you just like, hey, I go to church? Or, would you consider yourself a believer at that time?
I would. I would. But I was a kid,
Yeah.
So
to your best of your understanding.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's what I'd say.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so 1995, my dad calls us into the bedroom, and I sort of knew what was coming before, like the tone and the facial expression and the attitude of like something big is happening. And he told us that we were leaving the area and the church. And of course, I was 12, 10-year-old, 8-year-old brother, and then 7-year-old sister. So we were young. We were devastated, right? Mm-hmm. And so we moved to the South Bend area, a church called Pine Creek that I would finish high school in. And it was a little bit of a smaller church, and my And my dad, we lived in the parsonage again, and my mom, I think eventually at some point during that time, maybe a few years after we got there, started teaching. I think once Rebecca got to like high school, must have been 2000, maybe 2002, right around the time
Rebecca's
maybe I
your sister?
graduated. Yeah, Rebecca's
Okay.
a sister.
Okay.
Oh, I'm gonna have to pay her. I just said her name. Um, Ruh-roh. Forgive me. Okay, so yeah, so I went off to college. As a boy, I kind of always knew that I wanted to. I was into basketball, and one of my buddies that I played basketball with was really hardcore into Purdue, and I loved science and math, so I just figured computer engineer is what I should be, right? So I went to Purdue for that, and yeah, as a freshman and a sophomore, I got into what's called the cooperative education program.
Mm-hmm.
So that would have been about January of 2004, and I ended up getting a job with the Department of Defense. And the co-op program would end up taking me out to Maryland for a semester at a time. So, you know, the co-op program is like you do a semester of all work, then you come back and you do a semester of school. So I was back and forth between Maryland and Purdue, excuse me. And so that just created new friendships, opened a lot of doors, taught me some really interesting things about engineering, and I got into hardware engineering and VHDL, if you've ever heard of that. That's one of the programs. It's sort of a hardware description language, a little bit different than software, they call it. But right around in May 2005, a big life event occurred that I can say rocked my world even more than I knew at the time. I was in Maryland on one of those cooperative education sort of semesters. I was living with a good friend and another guy that we loved having around, but I haven't talked to him in years. But the other good friend actually lives in Indiana still. I don't want to go into too much detail about what happened, but like I said, it hit close to home, and a blood relative got hurt bad. And
Your blood relative?
yes,
Okay.
yes, bad. And you know, it was sort of around that time I had like known what alcohol was at the age of 21ish, ballpark, we'll say. And it was at that time that I started just drifting towards using it more. Mm-hmm. I know that now the way that this thing that happened rocked me is sort of part of why that started to happen. And at the same time, I was introduced to poker. And so I got into online poker. And that became something I could do to avoid my feelings.
I got a question. So, as you're talking, you're a young man, you're around the church, you believed you're a believer, you had a relationship. When you hit Purdue, did you like check your faith, or was it still prevalent during that time? Were you a Christian or active Christian, or were you just like, me and God are good, but I'm going to go to Purdue?
Yeah, it's hard to explain. Like, I look back at some of the things I wrote in high school, and it seems like me and God were good. Well, God is good all the time, but it's more of a me problem, right?
Yeah.
But
it's us walking away, not him so much.
Right, and so I was kind of alone, I think. You know, we'll get to my high school sweetheart and my wife here shortly, but I was kind of alone. Like, I went off to college, you know, I left home, I took my car with me, and I was kind of like on my own, quote unquote, for the first time, and I didn't plug into church. In college, it wasn't really a thing, you know?
Mm-hmm.
I was sort of my freshman year, I was in a dorm. Now, my best friend from high school, from growing up, he was there, and he was a really good support to me, and it was really key that he was there.
Was he a believer?
You'll have to ask him.
Okay, I didn't know if he kind of kept you grounded in the faith. And
no, it's a good question. So we don't talk in depth. He and I, like we're gonna get there, I think, but it's a process for all of us, and I don't want to speak for him, I guess.
No, that's fine. I just didn't know if that's kind of where you were going with that.
No, but he's just saying that him being at Purdue with me, like we roomed together in sophomore year, and we have some great photos and stories I can't tell on here, for sure. 100% won't tell him on here. I hope he watches this. He'll get a kick out of that. Yeah, wow. Okay. So what were we talking about? Oh. So 2005. Yeah. And so
is this when you got you stated that you got introduced to alcohol and online poker?
Yeah, so I got addicted. What I'd say, I don't know if I want to use the word addicted, but it's probably appropriate. Like, I started playing online poker too much, and that it didn't cause like undue financial stress. Like, it caused like mental, emotional stress for sure. And it caused, just undue stress is what I'd say. Like I used it as an escape, and obviously not an appropriate way to escape, right? Not a healthy way. And so that's kind of what happened in 2005. By the grace of God, somehow I still made all A's. I graduated valedictorian.
Wow.
At the end. But I was still able to do school and all those things, but in my free time, that's what I do. Poker.
And drink? Or just play
Well,
poker?
yeah. Yeah. The drinking wasn't, well, you can ask my wife and friends, but it wasn't as bad. It was bad. It was just like not great, but it wasn't like, I don't know how to say it.
You pretty much had that drinking under control, though.
Well,
but every so often you would tie one on.
Yeah, I wouldn't say it was under control, but it wasn't like I was often mean. I was just an idiot,
more than you realize. I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so I was an idiot a lot. But then, sort of, in fall 2005, I forget where I was exactly in Maryland, but I believe I was in Maryland again in the fall of 2005, and that's when I got back from there. It was sort of the time that I felt the need to ask my high school sweetheart to marry me, and I didn't have much money, and we now know why. But I somehow I got a ring, and I talked to my parents, and I talked to her father, and everyone seemed okay with it. A lot of these, like, the depths of my online poker issues and stuff were not completely in the light with my parents. Although I think my dad kind of, like, had a pretty good idea. But, it never came out, right? And confessed, like, in detail. So, yeah, I don't remember the exact day. I think it was early 2006. We were sitting in the parsonage at Pine Creek, and I asked her to marry me. I had this little glass dolphin, and so she said yes. And we got married 2 days after my birthday in August on 2006, August 5th, 2006. And boy, I'm just gonna need a second.
That's no problem.
So there's so much to say about her, but we'll get there. there's so much to say, but from there we spent the next year at Purdue. I finished out my college degree. The last year was at school, so she was working while I was going to school and doing senior level engineering, like senior project for computer engineering and all of that.
Were you still involved in online poker at this time, or had you moved past that?
Probably.
Okay.
Yeah. We'd play poker with friends whenever we could. That was a thing that I did. You know, I arranged that because I wanted to play poker. You know. Mm-hmm. But we had a pretty rough disagreement about what we wanted to do next, because I had gotten a good solid offer from a company in Ohio to take a job after college, a good salary, little bonus, you know, all the good things. And my heart wasn't in it. I had gone to the Department of Defense, and my last sort of co-op experience there was it was this really cool office that pretty much no one gets the opportunity to go to because everybody wants to go to this office. Mm-hmm. But I was fortunate enough to be able to get there, and I loved it, right? It's a dream job. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I wanted to go. And so it caused a rift between us for a time. And, you know, I got the offer from them to go to Maryland and take it, and full time. And we were there. She went with me, even though she was against it. We were there in the fall of 2007. And we don't have time or space. I have a story like this one time in Bangkok, for real. I have a story like that. It involves a cabbie throwing a tire iron at another cabbie and speeding off down the street with my suitcase. It's a knockoff Polo suitcase. It's called Palongo. But yeah, so I spent the years of between 2007 and 2011 working a lot. There was plenty of drinking in there too. But I felt like my dream job gave me purpose, mm-hmm. kind of thing. And I certainly probably didn't take good enough care of my wife as I should have as a husband. You know, I was there and I loved her, but I wasn't really present as I probably should have been. Mm-hmm. And I see that now. But late 2010, we found out we were being blessed with our first child. And early 2011, so, you know, we part of what we're talking about is his story, right? God's story through mine, Jesus' story through mine. Mm-hmm. And when you look back across your life, it's always really interesting to kind of look at all the things that he put in place in your life that maybe you didn't know about at the time.
Yeah. Hindsight's 2020.
Oh, yeah. So there's all kinds of things like that. And this particular thing is one of them, that my wife had a job working for a family who was an attorney, who she worked for, and she also babysat the children, but the mom was a radiologist. And so when she found out that Vicky was, my wife, was pregnant with our first child, they said, well, come in, we're going to do an anatomy scan at 15 weeks, because normally the anatomy scan's around 20 weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And so we go in, the tech is scanning her, I'm standing nearby, and all of a sudden the tech's, her face just goes dark, icy stare, like she's freaking out. And so immediately we knew something was wrong. And so the mom of the family, the radiologist, came in and started explaining to us there's a problem with the baby's heart. And that is a long story in and of itself, but you know, she was it occurs to me now, right, that God put us in Maryland so that this family could help us. find our way to where our daughter needed to be born. We went to Hopkins, and they said, well, they told us about what they thought it was, that she had a 3-chamber heart instead of 4. You should probably abort the baby, is what they told us. So I remember walking out of that doctor's visit, into the parking garage with my wife, having had to listen to that. It was just, I felt for her, obviously. It's my baby too, but she was very strong. My wife was amazingly strong, and she said, I want a second opinion. And she'll be able to tell you, but she did some research, and I believe actually the mom of the family, the radiologist, she said, you guys should go up to Philly. And so we got there, and it was a completely different story. They looked deeper. They did the echoes. They gave us the full story. They sat down with us in a calm, caring environment. The doctor drew a photo that's tattooed over my heart right now, that was done around the time the child was born. And she was born in Philly. They had a special unit just for moms with babies like this. I think it was called the special care, the SCU maybe. But we got there in time. We actually had to live in Philly for about a month. A good Christian family took us in for free through a program there at the hospital, and we lived in their house, in their tiny little apartment, for about a month waiting on the baby. And we got to the hospital in time. Baby came within like 24 hours of us getting there. The Lord had told my mom to come a day early. It's a whole thing. Like, my mom literally heard from the Lord, like, you need to go now. So they got there.
The Lord was very much in this.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And so they were there. They were there right about the time the baby was born. They showed up literally, I think, less than an hour prior. And she was an emergency C-section. Like, literally, I was sitting at a table having like a Dr. Pepper and some kind of dinner, watching a show on TV while Vicky's in the hospital bed. The nurses come in, throw me out of the way. They have her on the thing, on a cart. They're rolling her down the hallway. Someone comes to give me like a robe, the smock and the cap. It must have been not 10 minutes later. I'm in there telling my wife it's okay, and the baby's out. Like, it was violent. I did not know you could do a C-section that fast.
That's how my wife, our girl, was born the same way, like that. It was an emergency C-section, quick. I was all the way in New Haven because they just told us, they're like, oh, you got time, it's okay, or whatever. And I was like, our dogs have been locked up that whole time, so we're like, I'm gonna run home. My wife's even like, just go home real quick, and I'm taking her dad with me. So now her dad's not there, I'm not there. All of a sudden, we get this call from the mother-in-law. They're taking her in for emergency C-section. I'm like, what? They just told me I had time. I'm like, what? So we jump in the car, and I'm going like 90 down to get down to where Rendelia is. That's where they did it at. Same thing. I'm walking in. They're throwing the stuff at me, and I'm getting drug into there.
Yeah.
And it is violent. I don't think people realize how violent a C-section, definitely an emergency one. Yeah. They get that baby out, and they get that baby out quick.
I can't imagine how much it hurts to recover for the wife, for the woman,
Yeah.
Yeah, it's insane though. Like, I know exactly what you're talking about when you say violent. Like,
do you feel like during this time, did it drive you to your knees? Did you pray a lot during that time? Or were you still just kind of distant? Or did you retreat into more poker when you had a chance?
I had gotten some sedative style drugs from my psychiatrist on the up and up.
Right.
But I used that and beer to sleep. I was distraught. I mean, I was a shell of myself, I was...
Well, understandable.
I was there, and I was trying to love my wife, but I was a wreck.
But did you talk to the Lord at all, or was it just every so often like, God, you got to help me, or did you...
I think I was angry.
Yeah.
I think I was angry at God, My dad was there, of course. My dad brought the presence of the Lord and prayed over us, of course, and calmed me down some. But no, I was a complete wreck.
What's amazing is even though you were mad at the Lord, He was still there, and He put guardrails in the way to help you during that time. The way it sounds.
Oh no, 100% the case.
Yeah.
So, beautiful baby girl. When you watch this, I want you to know how much your Father loves you. It's more than you'll ever know. Yeah, she was so beautiful. She came out red as a rose. And she had to have open heart surgery on day one, like within the first 24 hours.
Oh wow, I can't imagine.
Mm-hmm. Her anatomy had to be corrected through the course of 3 open heart surgeries by the age of approximately 2 years old. And the second one that happened at 4 months was also an emergency. Also had a tough experience at Hopkins. I'm not saying Hopkins is a bad place. I'm just saying our experiences there were difficult, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so what I can say is that, you know, her being born to us there, I was on a government salary, cost of living in Maryland's tough. Mm-hmm. It just became way too much. And I was just like, honey, we're leaving Maryland. She's like, yeah, okay, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So that obviously was a huge life event, a circumstance, right?
And when you moved, did you move back to Indiana then?
Yeah.
Okay. What we're going to do is we're getting ready to wind down right now, this episode, but we're going to continue this conversation and hear what took place next. And really excited to, I'm like in it, you know what I mean? I'm in the thing. So we're getting ready to shut down. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being willing to come back next week and do this again. And to the audience, thank you so much for being a part. Remember, like, share, subscribe. This is more of a ministry than just a podcast. And we're not just trying to get famous. We're trying to do God's work here. So again, thank you so much, Randy, for making us look so beautiful. Thank you for the 2 Bar Blue studio. Matt Carter, thank you for being in studio today as well. Now that you're back, it just kind of feels whole. Aaron, thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Remember, all that call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Battleground Believers, out.